Hello and welcome to the summary of the third impulse of the first turn of Kiev 41, a solo playthrough I'm doing. It's to get reacquainted with the game and many times I actually do play solo, especially when I'm learning a new game or I'm getting reacquainted with a system. Then it's just really great when you finally do get to play with someone else that you know what you're doing. So that's one of the reasons I enjoy solo play as well. Um, well, as you can see here, I've left the Russian units face down so you can see better which ones I've moved and kind of where I've moved them to. But to start with the Axis, they finally managed to put a couple of Soviets units out of supply, as you can see here, and the most remarkable thing or noteworthy thing basically has been that Guderian has done pretty well. He rolled a couple of 5s and 6s and is now past Nishin, which means that areas 1 through 6 over here are now no longer a valid supply source for the Russians. What did the Russians do? They activated 2 headquarters, also in order to be able to keep the Russian fleets active. For each fleet that you deploy or want to keep deployed, you need to activate 1 headquarter. So that's also a reason I've activated 2. First one I activated was this one over here, left this one standing upright. Originally, I believe it's the Kharkov headquarters. It's positioned itself around Dnipropetrovsk to defend it even better. Doesn't look like it's necessary, certainly not because I also activated the Kiev headquarters, Southwest headquarters it is officially. If the actual commander had done so during World War II, I'm pretty sure Stalin would have had him executed, but I guess I can get away with it here. So they've tried to create a defense in depth. All the Axis headquarters are close to being exhausted now, and so it's basically impossible to take Kiev. So that one is out of the question. Dnipropetrovsk is also going to be as good as impossible, especially now. Theoretically, I believe one of these two is actually a Romanian tank corps. That's also, by the way, one of the reasons why solo play works just fine with these block games. I know that it's somewhere over here, and I believe it's this one, but it might just as well be the other one. You don't always remember everything. As I was going to say, one of these, while these areas were still empty, theoretically, that unit could have made it to Dnipropetrovsk. It looks very, very far away, which it is. But, of course, it's not just one day, one impulse. It probably takes a lot more than that, maybe a week or so. So in that time, without facing any opposition, I suppose you could make it. But anyway, Dnipropetrovsk is out of the question. It's too well defended. Kiev is too well defended. And that leaves only Odessa as a possible objective that they might seize. And if they do, the Axis that is, that still would be enough to win the scenario. If this were an actual campaign game, I'm pretty sure that they wouldn't be able to make up for the losses and not just in men and material, but also in time. But anyway, there are a couple of white units here and Romanian headquarters at strength 2, so it would be able to deploy its artillery and 2 aircraft. The aircraft obviously would have to come from the Luftwaffe headquarters, but that one is also over here. Maybe Odessa is going to work if the Germans have very lucky die rolls, but that's going to be very difficult because you have the fleet, you have 2 full strength Russian units in there, you have a victory area which gives you defense absorbs, I believe it's called, but anyway, how means the first 2 hits don't count, then you will need 2 more to eliminate the defensive line, so it's as good as impossible, but you know, you never know. It's worth a try. And I have to admit, still want to say that so far I've really been enjoying this playthrough, even though, you know, it's certainly not the start that the Germans had during the actual campaign, even though it was slow, but this one has been pretty horrendous. What I really like about it compared to, for instance, Leningrad 41, which I've played quite a few times. Well, yeah, that depends. I mean, I'm sure there are people who've played it much more often than I have, but I guess I've played it about 8 times or something, including 2 campaign games. And what I noticed in that one is that if you make a big mistake being the Germans, you can get away with it. It might cost you total victory, but you can still win the scenario. You can still win a minor victory. I made one huge mistake here, and well, you can see the situation now. If I were to actually play a campaign game, at the moment it looks like you know, the Russians could theoretically march into Bucharest any second, or you know, the Germans are just off to a terrible start. So I do believe that in Kiev 41, the Axis face a huge challenge, which is a good thing, I suppose. There are many alternatives I haven't tried yet, and I'm sure I will try them one day. But yeah, initial thoughts, initial impressions are very, very favorable. I hope you've enjoyed this summary of my third impulse. Thank you for watching.